Everybody, Detective Fun Guy here. We're back with another painting tutorial, but this time I'm going to work on a Dungeons and Dragons miniature. For this video, we have an ettin. The ettin is basically a large two-headed giant that serves that was chaotic, which is evil. So let's get started. So for the first part, we're going to focus on the main part, which is the skin. So for the skin, we're going to use a contrast paint, Gilliman Flesh. So check out the paints like so. There we go. So what we're going to do is actually, let me mount this on a base holder. Let me make sure I can find it. Actually, nah, we don't need a base holder. So take this, this is a large brush. Basically, we're going to take our, take some Gilliman Flesh and put it on the palette like so. This is an older brush, but yes, it works perfectly. Actually, let me use a different brush. Let's use this for transfer. We are going to need a lot because this is quite a big miniature. Where's a different brush? Okay, take some more paint, just one more. There we go. So what we're going to do is going to take this Gilliman Flesh and go all over the skin. So what we're going to do is this. So we're going to focus on the faces first, the face or the heads, like so. Coat all over them with this Gilliman Flesh contrast paint. And contrast paints do behave like a wash, so they will pool in the recesses, but try to move them around so that way you get a nice smooth coat. And here we're going to paint in sections. For this, we're going to focus on the skin right here, just very gently. Nice, gentle strokes so that way the contrast paint spreads evenly all over the miniature. And work on the other arm, part of the arm. Just nice, gentle strokes because there are some flat parts. Nice and gentle. Gentle, gentle. See if there's some excess right here. Just soak it up and just make sure you move it around. We're going to move this onto the pectoral muscle right here. Nice smooth coat. Nice and smooth. Some excess right here. Move it around. See, nice smooth coat. Nice and smooth. Nice and smooth. Just very gently, very gently. Just make sure you're having very much control over your brush and go over all the parts of the skin. Just make sure it doesn't pull in the areas. Just make sure it's a nice, even coat. Usually for contrast paints, you do need a thick coat, but for this, I'm using some stroking methods like this one, so that way, because it has more of a flat area, and you don't want to overload your brush. Just a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Alright, with the upper body now done, we're going to focus on the legs. For the legs, it's the same technique. So what we're going to do, take some paint on our brush, just be very careful. And if the paint unloads a little bit, like in the recesses, just soak it up gently and go smooth. Smooth coats. Smooth coats. Now onto the feet. Look to see where there's any pooling and just make sure just a nice even coat. Just a nice even coat. Make sure there's no puddles or pooling. There we go. That's the skin. That's the skin pretty much done. Okay, so with that, with the skin now basically almost done, basically we're going to focus on the wood of the weapons now. So for this, we have some Gilliman Flesh still wet, which is perfect. We're going to mix in a little bit of our another contrast paint into the mix. So before we actually, you know what? Let me get two contrast paints. shake up this one as well. We're going to use this contrast paint to mix in dark oath flesh. So mix up some dark oath flesh, or shake it up, I shouldn't say. We're going to take some dark oath flesh, add it to the Gilliman flesh mix. There we go. And then finally, we're going to add one more contrast paint to the mix. We're going to use this one. We're going to use Gore Grunt of Fur. So for the Gore Grunt of Fur, basically what we're going to do is this. So shake up the paints like usual. Take some Gore Grunt of Fur. A little more. There we go. Perfect. And we're going to mix all three of these together. It may seem weird, but it will make a really nice wood color. And you know what? Let's add some. Where is it? Oh, you know what? Let's also add some Black Legion. So let me get this. Let me wash off this. Shake up some Black Legion, and we're going to put this in the mix. So that way we'll have a nice dark brown, which is basically the wood color that we're going to be looking for. There we go. With the mix now mixed, what we're going to do is this. Unload your brush, make sure it's not too much. So what we're going to do is going to focus on the wood of the weapons, which is right here on the axe or the club, right here. And be careful not to hit the skin at all. If you do, don't worry, you can fix that later, but it will be a little more difficult once it's all done. Soak up the excess with your brush. There we go. I do need to thin this down slightly. What we're going to do is also going to paint the wood on the Morning Star that they have, which is this part right here. Make sure I get more wood color on it. All right, and that's the wood of the weapon painted. All right, with the wood now done, basically what we're going to do is this. With the skin now dry, let me just make sure it is dry. So we're going to highlight the skin real quick before we move on to the others. For this, I'm going to use my large dry brush by Citadel. So what we're going to do is we're going to start dry brushing and highlighting the skin. For this, we're going to use Kislev flesh. So shake up the paints like usual. If you don't want to use Kislev flesh, you could use another skin tone if you like. You could use Flayed One flesh. I'm just using Kislev flesh because it's a nice balanced tone. Wipe this off for the dry brush purpose. Okay. Perfect. So what we're going to do is this. Take this dry brush and we're going to, oops, I almost got my hand in paint. What we're going to do is this. So focus on some areas of the skin like so. The belly, the pectoral muscles, the legs, anywhere where you base coated with where you painted with the Gilliman flesh, we're going to add a nice little highlight to it. And just make sure, remember it's a very light dry brush. We're not looking for too prominent. We just want to highlight the skin a little bit so it adds more depth or contrast to the model. Use the face, knuckles, hands, arms, legs, pretty much everywhere where there's skin. All right, and that's the skin highlighted. Okay, one more highlight to the skin. We're gonna add some white scar to the Kislev flesh, which we just dry brushed with. It's still wet, so we're gonna use that and mix it. Take some white scar. I'm gonna mix it with the Kislev flesh, like right here. Make sure it's not too pale. Perfect. Okay, so with this dry brush, you have to be very sparing. Reason being is because we're mostly gonna highlight the sharpest details on the skin, so the most raised parts. So for this part of the skin, basically what we're going to do is going to focus on the sharper edges and just be very, very gentle. Right here, we're going to focus on the face, ridges on the face, some parts of the muscle, just not too much. Just a nice little flick. Nice little flick. And it's very subtle, and that is exactly what we're looking for. You also want to focus on the hands and fingers with this. Try not to get it on the wood. You may be wondering, what's the purpose of the second dry brush? It's just to give a little more highlight, just a little more. Not too much, but you know. Also on the toes. And also, you know, the fingers, and I already just did that. And we're also going to do this on the muscles. Just be very gentle when applying this, just so we get a nice smooth thing where it looks like actual skin. Alright, that second dry brush is done. Alright, with that now done, we're going to focus on the loincloth, which is on the back and front. So for this, we're going to take our same mix that we made a little earlier, and we're going to add a little more Gore-Grunta fur so it has that more of a hide color. So what we're going to do is this. I shake up the paint, add a little more Gore-Grunta fur, mix this in with the black. We just want a little more Gore-Grunta fur so that way I can darken it, and yet it can still have the hide color that we're looking for. Thin this down. Perfect. Alright, with that now done, basically what we're going to do is going to start base coating the loincloth. So for this, we're going to use this brush. We're going to be a little bit gentle. What we're going to do is this. This mix may seem like much, but yes. We're also going to go over all this, all over the fur, some of the other stuff, and there we go. Soak up the excess, and that's the fur pelt done. For the next part, we're going to focus on all the black on the model. For this, we're going to use this on the straps, but we're also going to use this on the hair. We're going to use Black Legion. So shake up the paints like usual, and then there we go. I did shake it up earlier, and also yes. So what we're going to do is this: take this small brush. What we're going to do is going to take the small brush and basically base coat all over the middle hairs right here. So including where the beard is, like right here, all the way down on the skin. Try not to get this on the skin, but if you do, you can fix it, although it will take a while, but just be careful. Nice even coat. Do this all over the hair and the back, all the hair and on the front and the back of the miniature, and I'll be right back. Before I forget, I'm using, for the teeth, for the teeth and the nails, we're going to use Wraith Bone. So, for the teeth and the nails, we're also going to use this on some of the bone that you see on the miniature. So, I do need to keep this a little quicker, or else my camera will cut out like it's been doing, even though I haven't even done anything. Base coat the teeth. Base coat the teeth. And also some of the bones and the nails of the miniature, the toenails. Alright, for the bone color, I also just base coated the thing in the Morning Star. So basically, we're going to paint the toenails with this color. For the toenails, we're basically going to make them look really nasty. So we're going to take this contrast paint. We're going to use snakebite leather. Snakebite leather is obviously a leather color, but it also gives the nasty look of really gross toenails. So watch this. So we're also using a very small brush, so that way these look infected. Ugh. He needs to see the podiatrist. Ugh. Look at that. Disgusting. Isn't that awesome? For one of the final parts of the miniature, we're going to shade all the bone. For this, we're going to use Seraphim Sepia. It's basically a wash or a shade. So this pot won't really stay open, so I do have to be careful with this. I'm going to transfer some of this on there. Need a little bit, not too much, but still quite a bit. It's a lot of bone on this miniature. Perfect. So what we're going to do is basically going to shade all over the bone details. So for this, there's some skulls on his belt right here. We're going to shade those. And you do have to, and if you want to use very little or very much, don't worry. That's your choice of that's just your choice. It'll all work out. And of course, the teeth. You got to be very careful with this because it's on the face. And also, we're going to go with the bone on the Morning Star. And before I forget, we're also going to add this onto the wood, because why not? Look, it gives like a nice little natural wood color as well. That's actually very nice. Alright, and that's the wood and bone shaded. And for the black hair on the model, we're going to do another highlight with a dry brush. We're going to use Skaven Blight Dinge. It's basically kind of a brownish gray. So, take some of this, and then we're going to wipe most of it off and perform a dry brush. Make sure there's not too much paint and stuff like that. Okay, so perfect. What we're going to do is this. So, what we're going to do is going to paint, is going to dry brush all over the hair using Skaven Blight Dinge. Okay, we're also going to highlight the dry brush, the leather on his legs, and that's pretty much it. And a final highlight for the hair, we're going to use Celestra Gray. So what we're going to do is take some Celestra Gray, put it on the palette, make sure I wipe it off, most of it off, because we're going to do another dry brush. Okay, so what we're going to do, highlight very gently with this dry brush. Just be very gentle and make sure it's not so streaky. What we're going to do is this, go all over the hair and just add a nice subtle gray, light gray highlight. There we go. Perfect. Try to avoid the skin. Okay, that's pretty good. And for the last part of the model, we're going to work on the stone for the stone weapon. For this, we're going to take another contrast paint. Basilicanum Gray. Oh, wait, no, this is Black Legion. Basilicanum Gray. Sorry about that. Basilicanum Gray. Put it on the palette. Thin it down a little bit. Perfect. So what we're going to do with this contrast paint is basically we're going to do this. So right here, I'm going to base coat all over the stonework, which is basically just this weapon right here. Why is there hair on this? The model, not the camera, but the model. It is strange. All right, and that's the stonework done. And basically, we're going to take the same contrast paint mix as earlier, like what we did. So we're also basically going to do the straps and the beard. So for right here, just the straps, just the straps, just the straps. And this is kind of a small detail, so try to take your time on this. All right, with that little detail done, our ettin is ready for the battle for the tabletop. So I really hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. This is my first Dungeons & Dragons miniature tutorial, but I really hope you enjoyed watching me paint this ettin. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.